trust what they say. Well, for some reason, they seem to be more than honest to me because a lot of them have admitted things that they have done, men and women. So don't think this is just a man thing. Women who are teachers have told me that they have touched children. So I don't report it. Some mental health professionals think I'm horrible for doing that. My attitude is I would rather help somebody who's struggling than say, hey, I'm going to throw you in jail as soon as you tell me anything. So a guy called me about a year ago. He said, look, I'm not a pedophile. I'm not attracted to children. But I got custody of my 6-year-old daughter earlier this year, because her mother was into drugs and whatever. And he says, I don't want to be doing this. But he had begun touching her. They had little interaction. And in describing this to some mental health professionals, I said, look, he had just touched her, like, what I would perceive to be mutual masturbation. He touching her, she touching him. She kind of liked the little game and asked for it. Oh, some professionals just thought I was horrible. But I helped him by identifying, first of all, his vulnerable moment was when she came out of the shower. I didn't tell him, hey, you got to get rid of your daughter, go turn yourself into the police. We talked about that. I said you could do that. But I said, when are you most vulnerable? And so it was when she came out of the shower in the evening. And of his own accord, he chose to have her shower in the morning so that she'd be off to school and they wouldn't have that sensitivity time. Then he, of his own accord, I've never told anybody to come out. I talk about it if they want to. I encourage them, but I don't demand that people come out to somebody. But he was living with another man, he had a male roommate, and he came out. He chose of his own accord to come out to his roommate. And the roommate said, yeah, I figured so. And said, I'll help you with this. So he had kind of a prevention partner there to support him. And he also identified 3 females that he could let his little girl go stay with if he felt extra vulnerable. Oh, people tell me, oh, you don't know if he stopped or not, but he called me several times in the last year. And as far as you know, he spilled the water on the table. Try to be more careful. Thank you. So I think he stopped. And I say, my attitude is, yes, I think that penetrating is, to me, the worst, especially ongoing penetration. I would rather say, hey, stop while you're at the just touching stage than have him go on. Some people say, well, you failed. How do you know he didn't do it again? I don't know that for sure, but I believe that he stopped. Thank you very much. We have such a good team here. All right, let's move on. Were you sexually abused as a child? Some of you may share your story. So a few years ago, I was in counseling, and this was in the 80s. In the 80s, they were really driving home this sexual abuse thing, and a counselor told me, you were sexually abused by your mother. So I called my mother up, and she says, no, I said, I don't remember anything like that happening. So I go back to the psychologist, and she says, you're both in denial. I don't know. I don't think it happened. So 71% say no. So it has numbers down below. No, it doesn't have numbers. Yeah. That's the number of the thing, but somewhere I could change it and tell how many of the 14 responses were the 7% represent. But anyway, so most of us are confident that we were not sexually abused. Now here's a sensitive question. Have you ever been sexually attracted to a child? I'll give you about 5 minutes to think about that, because I know some of you are not sure. No, our time is up. All right, 69%. Now here I wish I knew how to flip real quickly to the numbers. No, I don't. I don't want to do that. You can just guess. But don't try to guess who the people are in this room who admit that they are sexually attracted to children unless they choose to come out themselves. Please be respectful and And if you must throw Rotten Tomatoes, throw them at me. Because this, you've been on the internet, right? Where anytime the subject of pedophilia comes up, Facebook, kill them. So have you had sexual contact with a child? Now, I'm not going to go ask anybody. Personally, I'm not going to confront them, but this is an opportunity just to admit it without having anybody know what your answer is. So let's give 10 seconds to figure that out. Maybe you're not sure. So 82% say no. I guess everybody's sure one way or the other. So there are a few in this room, and I will tell you right now that some of them will admit that to you today before the day is over. What is the best response to non-offending pedophiles? So this is just for the fun of it again, just to see if anybody has Rotten Tomatoes hidden. Oh, I am so relieved.
Because I was going to leave if it was one.
Okay. So who cares about people with pedophilia? People say, oh, the children are important. As if helping pedophiles is, you have to choose one or the other. Well, why not both? Why not help pedophiles who are at risk, possibly, of sexually interacting with a child to not abuse? So there's ASAP, ASECT, ATSA, Before You Act, PPD, NOW, STOP-SO, VRPED. Let's go through each of those. ASAP, we are the Association for Sexual Abuse Prevention. Say, well, why didn't you start another organization? There were one or two others that I would have been glad to do this in. ATSA is the primary one. But anyway, they're working in that direction. We work with them, but we eventually decided that we needed something unique. And now I'm discovering that that's not unique. Some of you have already been doing it, probably for years and years. But anyway, that's our website. ASAP was already taken, so we added the word international to suggest that we're around the world. The people that contact me, they're from Israel, Iran, Kazakhstan, mostly from America. We don't do the treatment ourselves, but any of you that are therapists, I want to put you on a list. Now, therapists suffer from corollary stigma. There's horrible stigma against pedophiles, but you therapists know that you can get it too, the Rotten Tomatoes. But if you're willing to have your name on the list at ASAP International, the last page is getting help. So we list in public. The ATSA people, they don't do that, but I have access to their list, so I sneak on their list and get a referral from them. ASEC was a new one that I didn't know about, but we met. Jennifer Weeks did a presentation with us out in Philadelphia last spring, and I think they have a lot of potential. They're not international, they're just American Association. They do similar, they're a professional organization, therapists belong to that, and all the ones I've talked to get it. Therapists don't all get it. Some of them think that it's impossible, it's inevitable that every pedophile is going to offend. So ATSA is right here in Beaverton, the Association for the Treatment of Sexual Abusers. I don't think this is too sensitive a question. You don't have to raise your hand, but how many are members of ATSA? So there are several here. All right, you can talk to these folks. It's a good organization. They're moving toward primary prevention. The last president, Elizabeth Letourneau, a friend of mine, she's doing something at Johns Hopkins University, especially for young people. Excellent program. She was here at Portland State, I think, last week. Somebody told me. One of you told me.
I think it's next.
Next week? Well, then you can go to hear her too. And the current president, Michael Meitner, is it? He's also very into prevention. I like him. Before You Act was one of the first support groups for people that didn't want to offend. The challenge is that they choose not to take a stand about the rightness or the wrongness of sexual interaction with a child. I didn't like that. Some other people didn't like that, so they started another organization we'll get to in a minute. Michael, actually, we met at Before You Act, And at first, somebody from ATSA told me, don't have anything to do with Before You Act. How come you have them on your website? Well, as we went to their conference last year and the year before. They're doing basically the same thing we are, getting mental health professionals and minor attracted people together. They're a little different approach than we are, but we're not that different. And the last time we were out there, I said, Richard, maybe we can work together. He said, yeah, you guys talk too much about abuse. So, we kind of come from the let's protect children from abuse perspective. They're not quite there yet. So anyway, that's Before You Act. Prevention Project Dunkelfeld is the premier program for treating what they call the dark field. Dunkelfeld means the dark field. The light field would be those that have come to the attention of the criminal justice system. They know about them. The dark field, they don't know about them. So these are people that come forward. People say, oh, nobody would come forward. But they have a project that is growing by leaps and bounds. They keep adding new satellite state places in Germany. But it's just Germany, done in German, speak German. They allow people from other countries, but yes, you gotta speak German. So at first, they heard about us. I spent $1 a month on a website, $12 a year at iPage, and that's about the limit of my retirement income. But they somehow heard about us, and they wrote to me and said, don't use our motto, which goes something like, you're not responsible for your attractions, but you're accountable for your behavior. I thought that was a good motto. But anyway, they didn't want us to make people think we were them. But then one of their graduates is a good friend of mine now, and he mediated, and eventually they told us we could share their manual with you. So that's what this program is based on today. If you're a therapist, you should have received with an email an attachment that is their long manual. We'll do the short version today. We'll just kind of summarize it. So anyway, that's sometimes called Prevention Project Dunkelfeld, but their manual is called the BEDIT manual. So confuse those two. The BEDIT, Berlin Bisexuality Therapy Manual. I actually met Klaus Spear at one of the ATSA conferences, told him what we wanted to do. He said, well, you've got to have a hospital. But frankly, this is the first hospital that even let me in the door. The local Portland Adventist hospital thought it was too risky to actually have pedophiles in the same building with children. Hey, they're there already, you just don't know it. So what? It's something that you actually know about. So anyway, topic now is a little different in America as it is. It's a separate organization in England. I met some of the guys from England and I was quite impressed with them. What can I say? They're a good organization. They're into primary prevention. But it's like when you call them, they say, well, what have you done? Or what are you going to do? We got to protect the kids from what you're going to do. Jenny Coleman, who's now the CEO, very good woman, and I've talked to her and tried to encourage her a little more to get with the program. But anyway, just to be direct about it, most people with pedophilia are a little uncomfortable contacting them. They have some good information. If you're looking on the web for some things you shouldn't be looking at, they have a system now that brings up a pop-up that says, don't go here. It's not part of the criminal justice system, but it's just a little warning. Don't look at these pictures. So a good organization, they care. Probably the one that I like the best, Julia Grayson over in England, about the same time we started an organization called STOP-SO, Stop Sexual Offending. It actually stands for Specialist Treatment Organization for the Prevention of Sexual Offending. And when I talk to her, it's like I'm talking to myself. I think she thinks we pretty much think. But again, some of the people with pedophilia have a little hard time. Stop sexual offending. You're emphasizing too much. Pedophiles are people. It's not like they're just uncontrollable rapists. So BURPED is an online support group that spun off from Before You Act. And if we're live streaming today, I hope that some of the folks from BURPED and some from Before You Act are on board with us, listening in. Anyway, they take a strong stand against any sexual interaction with a child. So that's the upfront thing, to belong to it. Okay, maybe you did it in the past. Maybe you're a sex offender, a convicted sex offender. But you have to be committed to not ever do it again. Don't harm a child. So I appreciate that. It's my conviction that that's why it is growing the fastest. Before You Act, they'll have one or two. Some days there's no comments. VRPED, every day, hundreds of comments. People joining all the time. Now has over 1,800 members. So it's a support group. Ethan and Nick are the gentlemen who use a pseudonym. That's not their real names because they are somebody important in their society and their culture. They're not ready to come out. One of them even to his wife. So they go by a pseudonym. So it's kind of nebulous. Where is this organization? Well, it's all online. There are mental health professionals that can join there as well. Just kind of sit in. I don't see any of the mental health professionals providing support on VRPED. I wish that some of you would take some time to do that. I do that, and I'm not magic, but for whatever reason, they have come to respect me. So when somebody new joins and is having trouble, well, talk to Gary or get a referral from Gary. So I have referred dozens of people. I don't keep track of anything because I don't want somebody coming in and snooping around what I'm doing and saying, okay, let's get a list of all these guys and round them up. Maybe they haven't done anything, but you can go harass them, take the kids away from them, whatever. So that is Virtuous Pedophiles. Just real quickly, I know I'm out of my time. I promised I would take half an hour, but the big book, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, this is up for sale. Anybody want to? We're going to auction it off. The starting bid is $35,000. Because this lasted for 6 months. In here it says that pedophilia is a sexual orientation. Okay, it's a disorder if you are distressed by it or you act on it, but otherwise it's just an orientation like any other sexual orientation. And that's the stand that we take. They changed the online, which is a whole nother story, but I might get into that later. But anyway, 2 days they had it changed online, just like that, to sexual interest, not sexual orientation. So that's a book that I recommend. The Stop Child Molestation book. Now, Gene Abel is what I think of as kind of the grandfather of this subject. Maybe you have some folks like him, maybe you don't, maybe you've pedophiles like him, maybe you don't. Because some of his research was done 30 years, 40 years ago. He's got a big white afro and looks kind of like Einstein, Albert Einstein. And to me, he's just a grandfatherly figure. I love him. I talk to him at ATSA conferences, chat him again. He knows what we're doing, and he says, you better be ready for the rotten tomatoes. He knew that we would get harassed for trying to help pedophiles not act on it. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Why not build a fence at the top of the cliff instead of trying to build a hospital at the bottom after they already get abused? So his book, Stop Child Molestation, he has some ideas about like the origin, the etiology of pedophilia that I think has some value, but some people don't. So the next book is Tiger by Margot Fragoso. I don't know why it's doing that, but Margot actually was sexually abused from the time she was 7, and then the perpetrator committed suicide when she was 22. This is a unique book about sexual abuse, so if you haven't read it, I recommend this one. We get later into Before You Act. Richard says that they don't want to recommend this book because it emphasizes too much that, this guy needed to stop abusing this girl or whatever. Anyway, I recommend it. And she was going to come, but she has some health issues and didn't make it. So we have somebody that will very adequately take her place. The Mind of a Molester. This is a guy we met actually at that Before You Act conference. This is not his real name, but we met him. Very nice gentleman, and we just read his book. Thought it was great. Again, it comes from the perspective of somebody who has abused and what they learned from it, and I think can be helpful to people who haven't abused to prevent them from abusing. So whenever you get into this subject, for some reason I didn't show up Sarah Good's book. Anyway, Understanding and Addressing Adult Sexual Attraction to Children, a study pedophiles in contemporary society. Most of this was done with the Before You Act members, and at first they were excited. Frankly, some of them were disappointed. I don't know why, because I love the book. I appreciate it very much. So there is a list. I printed out a list of the resources, so you should have that on your resource list. So whenever you talk about child abuse, child sexual abuse, everywhere we've gone, somebody has come up to me and said, you know, I was abused when I was 12 or whatever. I don't remember ever making a presentation anywhere where somebody can say, you know, that 1 out of 4 girls, 1 out of 6 boys, the numbers that we use, sexually abused as a child, which that's the problem with the whole issue is you don't know exactly what a child is. Is it 14? Is it 16, 18? So we'll just be kind of loose here and talk about generic numbers as a child. And we have a very good speaker here that will share her story to provide a little empathy and enhancement. I'm sure you all care about children already, but we need to remind ourselves why we're doing this work to prevent it from happening to children. So Elaine, if you will just take this mic if you're comfortable being on international television.
Okay, I don't think I'm probably going to be as good as Margot would have been. I was really looking forward to hearing her, but Gary asked me to fill in for her. I was sexually abused by my father from the time I was age 4 till sometime in my teens. The last time I remember him trying, I was 15. I was having my period at the time. I was terrified of becoming pregnant, and I just kept saying no. And he kept trying to talk me into it. Well, you can't let boys do this because they don't know when to stop, but I know when to stop. And I kept saying no anyway. And finally gave up. He abused me again when I was 16, but I don't remember that. So I was asking my mother if there was anything she remembered about it that might jog my memory. She said that he had taken me out to teach me how to drive. Okay, I remember that part. And that kind of explains to me why it would be so traumatic that particular time that I would block it out. I don't think I'll ever actually remember it. I'm assuming that it was probably oral that time. I have a very strong gag reflex, but even at the dentist's office, I don't know for sure because I don't think I'll ever remember it. But anyway, I made some bad choices with marriages, married abusive men. The first one was the father of my children, and he sexually abused his own daughters. But he had become a doctor by the time we found out. Actually, it wasn't until much later that I realized he had actually sexually abused both of them in Stevens County, playing with their nipples and when they were very young, titty. Well, I didn't feel comfortable with that, but I didn't realize until later that that was being called sex abuse. At the time I found out about the older daughter, she told me that one time when he had taken them to Auburn, he asked her to rub his penis for him. And the younger one came running down the hall. Why did she do it? The counselor seemed to be very helpful at the beginning. From what I needed, she just left the white stuff to me. But then she got the doctor's father involved, and she was suddenly of no use to me, trying to force him to let the whole visitations I wasn't ready for. And later we had to enforce a visitation at that time when we had just set up the gymnastics camp the beginning payment, and Friday she was supposed to leave on Sunday, that they had to go with him, and that the counselor was there. So the younger girl came to me just begging us to, I was with my second husband at that time, begging us to follow them so that they could run away and get in the car with us. And, with many tears inside me, I had to tell her. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I don't know, they seem to, I don't think my girls, either one of them realize, or, I don't know, we haven't really talked about, the fact that he played with their breasts, but anyway, the rubbing his penis had happened in King County, and we lived in Stevens County, King County.
Space Center where we had the 100 dash.
They had their own problems, they didn't want to deal with it.
Oh, no.
They realized that the country
No, it doesn't. Remember the. I don't remember this.
So that man never spent a second in jail, but he could be very, other people could be very judgmental of my third husband, who did not abuse my children and did spend a lot of time in the prison system and ended up dying there 9 years ago. The second husband also abused my girls and actually abused all of us, I'd say, in every way possible, sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally. Even though the third husband had been in prison before we actually were able to get married, he just seemed nobody's perfect, but he fixed it when they love children compared to the others. And becoming an alcoholic, and I felt like such abuse that thrives in secrecy, so we didn't have secrecy about his anyway, he and I were driving the truck together, and I got out of the truck at one time, and it was counseling. One year I was thinking counselors probably going to two support groups. One was through the
You're gonna have a lot of this crap filled in. He's never gonna do anything with it. You're gonna run 20 systems. He's gonna pre-print. He's gonna all of our numbers, revs, descriptions.
support group
Okay,
in Arkansas.
all you're gonna have is line.
And it just didn't seem like
He's gonna run 20 labels where. So.
That my 40 years of union from high school, Upper Columbia Academy, which is a coding school, and
I'm at right now.
I was
The
talking
rev you're gonna have is a very
about
little bit of what you are.
something
That's see your hurt. It's always part of the rest of the.
well, I looked at him, it was crazy, and
Right.
yes, somehow I had victim. And recently, I was telling him that, I was very proud after returning from the trip, trying to get some rest, and he asked me
And then Mike Rojas needs
when I was going to be leaving.
to do it.
I don't know. Plan to stay the night. Well, he said that wasn't gonna work. I don't remember what I said. I have no idea what I said that offended him, but
You looked at what,
leaned over and shook his finger in my face and said, "Don't you ever talk to me that way." And that whole, and then more of it, but, he just.
Yeah, but if you get a little bit bigger, display
So,
code.
I don't know, I think we have ways of,
I'm doing a quick sound test.
being a survivor sometimes.
We had one other unit, like 10 years old. Yeah.
The question,
So,
had to.
not sure the best way to handle it, but I have these two function calls for you to use when you go to stop mode. That will result in the lowest power.
Oh, okay.
And then on top of that, I don't know if you're already doing it or not, but unused pins should be set to analog inputs.
We did that, I think,
Did you
in the
have that
cube.
already? Yeah,
I think we did that in the cube.
yeah.
You can see what,
So that's the best you can do for now, and then in the future, we'll change pins to be analog inputs before
Mhm.
going to stop. It won't matter for this hardware.
yeah, right. Yeah, well,
Okay.
the stop mode code is,
I don't know, I have come to see
Well,
it as.
this is called going into stop. System. No, that's coming out of
Coming out,
stop.
yeah, gotcha.
That and other best.
Where is it? All the, where's the stop mode?